I'm Dr. Fara Kamangar. We're here at the SF Derm Eczema Symposium and 100-year celebration, which is really exciting. And I'm joined by Stacey Williams, who is absolutely amazing. And I'll do a full bio as well. So Stacey Williams is currently the Vice President of Marketing for Dermavant Sciences. And Stacey has been working with the dermatology market for 8 years and has been in various healthcare commercial roles for 25 years. She wants to be known as a true integrator that delivers visionary leadership in the complex world of healthcare. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, thank you.
I think that's literally one of the main things I wanted to talk about today.
Yeah.
So how to manage the complex world of
Oh my gosh. If I knew that.
Yeah. So welcome.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to add to the bio that I missed?
No.
All the amazing things you're doing?
Well, gosh, that was a lovely intro. And I just want to thank you so much for having me. When you invited me, I was thrilled because as working in as a manufacturer of a drug product, like our role is different than the dermatologist, but we play a part in this ecosystem. Yeah. So thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you.
Oh, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
And the main 2 points that one of the things I go to you often, and I find people in your role, first of all, just really know this so much better than the physicians. I think our field of dermatology has become really complex. Yeah. Even this morning, I actually had clinic before I came. I think I had maybe 3 or 4 patients that we did the clinical exam, we diagnosed the thing, gave the prescription, and then it was like 5 to 10 minutes of talking about this might happen with your prescription, this might happen to this, and then we'll do this. And then I know once they leave, they're probably super confused by all the things I said because they're like, why can't I just go pick this up?
Yeah.
And then on the back end, when I leave, my staff is there still working on that script. So one thing is I think you have a really good history of, which I think as doctors, we know little bits of it, but maybe not the full history of how we came to this point where maybe 20 years ago, a dermatologist would see someone, write a script, hand that to them. Yeah. They would go to the pharmacy and get it. And where all these gaps have kind of started. So that was one thing. Then if we have time, I'd love to talk about really cool things you're doing with women and health and inequality.
I love it. I love it.
So if it's okay with you, we could start with
full plate. Let's do it.
And then also I really at some point want to get to just your journey of how you've gotten to such an amazingly impressive position.
Thanks.
Other women that want to get to that position. Because I think in the world we hear so much about all the negative things like burnout and this and that. But yet there are so many women like you who just have these really high level positions, are doing amazing work.
Thank you.
Seem happy all the time.
No.
So I'd love to talk about that too. But first, the nitty gritty, I'd love to just hear about what your thoughts are of like, how did we get to this point? Like, why is it so hard to just get our therapies? Why is it so hard for patients? All of that.
It is so hard. And every time I try to explain it to someone who's not in healthcare, like if like my aunt and my uncle are like, hey, I went to the doctor and I went to get this and they told me that I had to go through my PBM and they're like, what does that mean? And I start to explain and then they're just like glaze over and they're like, I don't even know, like, what do I do with this? And I feel for them because for you all, in some ways, your prescription pad has become a suggestion that then needs to go through this filter of approvals from someone who probably doesn't have direct care for that patient that you just saw. And that stinks. And it also stinks for us that produce these really amazing new drugs that we want people to have access to, but sometimes they have to go through all these hoops to get them. I find what I want people to understand or to do better, and I'm trying, is empower the patient or caregiver to demand more. If you write something for them and you spend the time talking about why this is best for them, and they end up going to a pharmacy, and the pharmacist says, sorry, we don't have on the shelf, or your insurance has a prior authorization, at that moment you can say, and it's like you can walk away, or you can advocate for yourself, call the insurance, say this is why I need this. So there are these ways to fight for it. It shouldn't have to be so hard, but it is sometimes.
It's hard. That's a really good point too. Is a lot of our patients, specifically with like certain inflammatory conditions, if they have arthritis with it, if they have it all over.
Yes.
They're not feeling the greatest.
I
The
know.
mood is already low coming in.
Yes.
They've maybe waited months to see the dermatologist. So they're like, oh, maybe there's some hope here.
Yes.
And then they get that script. And then they go and there's like another hurdle.
Yes.
And it's hard. Yeah. It's really hard, but you have to be their champion too.
And it's tough for them because they don't know, I don't want to say blame, but they don't know who to blame.
Yeah.
Because do they blame their doctor for writing a medication that's this expensive and their insurance wouldn't take? Do they blame the drug manufacturer for making a drug that's hard to get and is expensive? Do they blame the pharmacist because they didn't have it on the shelf? Do they blame their insurance? They don't. They don't know who to go to.
That's such a good point, because I think who gets the brunt of it first, it's the doctor and the team.
Yes.
And then now there's like the My Health Online messaging.
Yes.
So it's like, why did this happen? This doctor's the worst.
And they get it.
And so that happens, and that leads to doctor burnout. So that's a piece of it. Then you hear a lot, well, these drug companies are doing this and this, but it's like, well, they did a lot of R&D to get to that point. But it's there's other forces in the back end that are really the barriers that patients don't know of. They just don't know the whole. And for doctors, it's even hard to figure that out.
It is. And I'm old enough to remember there was a time in, the 90s, I guess, even the late 80s, when there were only a handful of insurance companies. Like, you would know, right? Like, okay, Aetna's covers this, Blue Cross Blue Shield covers this. And you would know, you'd have in your head. Today, you don't know, because even if you have someone who doesn't understand that you have someone else carry a pharmacy benefit is different from your insurance provider. And then underneath that insurance, there could be 100 plans based on your employer.
Yeah.
And so you as a doctor, you have no idea. No one has it stamped on their forehead exactly what's covered and what's not covered. You're just doing what's best for the patient. And what happens at the pharmacy counter can be just like, it's a wheel of luck to see what happens, which is really hard. Yeah. Yeah.
And what do you think has changed? Like, we know there are these other extra pieces.
Yep.
But I guess I'm sort of like, I think as physicians, we're trying to just figure out, like, how did it get so convoluted? And I feel there's even more barriers that keep coming up. And then the other piece you mentioned is the best point, is the lack of transparency, because doctors try to spend time getting back to like the 80s mindset of like, well, let me just figure out what's in their formulary. And you can't. You can look it up. You can ask. You can call the insurance. They won't send you straightforward things. No. You could even like ask.
It's a mystery.
It's a mystery. Then like our EMR tries to do it. There's some suggestions there. It's not always correct.
Yeah.
I guess what's two questions there? I guess I'm asking multiple things. One is, why has it become so hazy?
Yeah.
Is there anyone that actually knows? Or is it just that there's so many pieces that everyone's kind of confused?
Yes. I mean, the U.S. healthcare system is super complex, and the amount of players involved that aren't directly involved in delivering healthcare has grown. And so I think a lot of the pharmacy benefit managers have gotten a lot of negative press, bad press, and they're kind of a recent development, but they've added a layer of complexity. I think in dermatology, especially, what happened was, it was right around 2015, 2016 that the insurers started looking at where they were spending a lot of money, and dermatology all of a sudden popped up. And it was also the advent of a lot of the biologics and systemics with big price tags on them that they were paying for. So when that happened, obviously they run this analysis and they're like, okay, we got to figure out how to manage the spend in dermatology. And so what before was you could write whatever you wanted and it was filled and covered. Now it's, wait a minute, this isn't covered anymore? No, we reworked our formulary. And it was the change from really topicals and orals to these biologics and the price tags that changed the way they look at things. Then enter in this other level of complexity, which is the manufacturers decided, well, we need to help things be affordable. So we're going to do copay programs to help offset savings programs. And then the insurers are like, well, if you're going to do that, then why do I need to pay if you're going to pay?
Yeah.
And so it's become, well, now you're the main payer, so I don't need to pay. So I'm only going to pay for these and you can do this over here.
Yeah.
But you can't use your program for anyone with government assistance. So no one knows this. Like no patient or consumer really understands. They just want to see you.
Yeah. Get their medicine.
have it be affordable to them and fit in, and take it and get better. So they don't understand all these
like complexities.
Yeah, these fights.
You
that
bring
go
up
on.
a really good point, actually, because I had a couple of patients this happened to last year, and then I learned this trick. I was like, to be aware of. There was one program for a different biologic that has like a pretty good savings program, but it's meant to pay like the copay and last all year. Yeah. So basically, what I found for two of my patients, it was like March or April. They're like, I ran out of the program. I can't do it anymore. I was like, how did this happen?
Yes.
And then we kind of traced it back, and they basically, instead of the insurance paying, just were using the company savings program, and it just used it up, obviously, at like a very short amount of time. So, and the patient just had bad flares the rest of the year. But it's sort of like, it would seem as I feel like in the medical field, we have so many laws and so many regulations that we cannot do. There's so many things we can't do.
I know.
Then you have the FDA, which is so regulated and so good. So you have that as a body. And then it seems like there's a little bit of, probably controversial, but it seems to me like there's a little bit of lawlessness that's kind of happened a little bit around.
Yeah.
Because some of these things, I'm not like necessarily like a corporate lawyer that would know these things, but it's mostly like, that seems wrong. Like, how are they allowed to do that?
Yeah.
So
if in your gut you're like,
it's become a little bit like these. But to what you said, I think it's just so new, right? That these things are being ironed out.
Yeah.
Over time.
And I mean, the answer probably is somewhere in the middle of how we manage through this, because, we didn't get here. Everyone kind of is responsible for being a little, like, in the 80s and 90s, like, things were kind of crazy with, like, you were pricing things, you were selling, like, you were really, it was kind of a free-for-all. So there needed to be things reined in. But then it was reined in almost to the point where
nobody can get
medication. Like, it's extreme the other way. So there is, and in the end, what I always say is, like, it's the patient who probably doesn't understand the most that is the one impacted the most and the most frustrated. And, people like, well, they can pay this, copay, but you forget that people pay every month for insurance.
Yeah.
So they already feel like they're paying
insurance already. Yeah.
So when you give them another bill, well, why am I paying insurance if I have to pay that on top of it? And that's the mindset. And, $50 can be different for a variety of people.
Yeah.
And you have to make that choice sometimes for your medicine. Yeah. So the U.S. healthcare, I'm waiting for there was a moment where, I forget who it was the big consumer groups. It was like Amazon came together with Apple or Google, and they were going to look at healthcare, and they were going to help solve it. And I think they even gave up.
I was following that trend. I was like, okay, let's see what happens. And one of the things I always say, and again, I'm a physician, so we're always going to look at things from your viewpoint. I do think part of the problem is that not only in just these like insurance type of things, but also in technology and different aspects of medicine, the physicians kind of been pushed aside.
I know.
And I almost think, again, as with anything, if you're the front person dealing with the problem, you should be somewhere in the solution.
You should.
Just like present somewhere.
Yeah.
You don't have to be the top guy.
Not over here on the side.
Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of stuff is kind of just happening to the physicians. And the House of Medicine, the AMA, they're doing amazing work around all of this. But I do think it's sort of like they should almost be the first people everyone's like talk to before things change, because that group would know. Like, they'll tell you what'll. They're in clinic every day. They'll tell you what'll work and what won't work.
I agree. I agree. And for us as manufacturers, we also want to offer up help for physicians to deal with this complexity. And sometimes I think we assume you all understand it at a deep level, and we're like, they know how to get through that. They can do that. And I don't think anyone does, because your job is treating patients, not like understanding insurance. But yet it's probably a huge part of your job. You're hiring
huge part, like
biologic coordinators. I read somewhere someone said that they've had to hire at least 2 extra headcount just to keep up with the administrative paperwork.
Our department, we're a bigger department at PAMP, but we have an entire outside group now that just does our prior auths, because it started with the biologics and all that, but now it's extended to even just your simplest topical that comes out. It could be like a mixture of low-strength benzoyl peroxide with clindamycin. You have to do like a prior auth for. So it's just kind of extended to.
It has the control,
And I have one question you may or may not have the answer to. Why the patient savings card? Why not just like have savings? I don't know if this is like a hidden thing to ask. I guess I've always wondered this. If there's a budget within a pharmaceutical, if that question kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Or is it just that very small amount of people actually access the savings program and there's only so much of a budget for it? Or I guess it's sort of like, I just always thought that. And that's why a complex question. It's why a complex economic question.
Well, so I'll make sure I understand it, because I think it's actually a really good question. It's like, is it why have a savings program, or why not just price the drug to be
just a little
accessible?
And this is like a very layman person's question, because I'm sure there's so many complexities behind it, and I don't know how much the budgets are for these different things. But
it's a great question, and I think a lot of pharmaceutical companies wrestle with how do they make sure that their drug is affordable and there's access to it, but at the same time, how do they make sure they can stay in business?
Yeah, exactly.
And still, develop products that, 1 out of 10 aren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And it comes to, we also have to work within the payer system where you're negotiating access and price and formulary, and they also want a part of what the drug costs.
Yeah.
So everyone ends up kind of taking
it's a complex
piece.
Deal that happens.
Yeah, and in the end, right, the manufacturer doesn't bring home to kind of feed the pipeline and the new products that much, and so it's almost like it's just like a snowball.
Yeah,
because
it's a complex question.
And then we had to react to it. Then you react to it. And so the savings card is almost just a result of the fact that we've all snowballed.
Right. Maybe it was just like an idea, like let's just throw this at it and see if it works.
And then the minute we threw the savings card, I'd just say, hey, we can give that to you. Then the insurance and that will react another way.
Yeah.
Then you have to do something different. And it just feels like it's,
that's going to probably evolve to another story too. I'm sure like 5 to 10 years when we talk about it, it'll be like some different.
Yeah. I think copay cards, savings cards, we've all been talking about this for a while. They probably will come to an end
at some point.
Yeah. The government's talked about ending the programs, and because is it creating an artificial environment when the manufacturer can pay so much of the difference for something you don't cover? Like, what if you just price the drug at $50?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the question.
If that could just be done.
Yeah.
And what was I going to ask you? Oh, this is just my own personal theory.
Yes.
So there's a lot of doctors that are like, and prior auths, these are the worst. Yeah. Prior authorizations really get in the way of everything. Yeah. And I understand insurance companies on their end have to bring in different regulatory things, and maybe they're fine-tuning it or figuring out what works and what doesn't work. So there's been lots of like, sign this petition, and I think those things won't work. But my personal theory is, I think, and I'm curious to get what your thoughts are, I think we can get rid of prior auths if we're really, really good at them. And my thought is like an insurance company, because I think I saw it happen for one drug. I kind of feel like they look at it, and if most prior auths get done pretty quickly at a high rate, they realize, well, we just paid all these people to do the paperwork. It's not worth it. Doctors are getting this through anyway.
Yeah.
Just a personal theory of mine. So I was just trying to get all my colleagues like, just get prior auths done quickly. Get them done. Right. Because it's really, you just have to think about the economics of it.
Yes.
Have you seen any of that on the back end of any medicines you've seen prior auths loosen up for any different reasons, and what those kind of factors are that might lead to prior auths decreasing?
Yeah.
I think the whole like just protesting it isn't going to work. It's like, well, let's work together as an ecosystem.
Yeah.
What things could we do to lower costs on their end too? They don't have to have all these prior auth people doing things on their side.
Yep. Yeah.
So just any thoughts around that?
I like your theory.
Or you could think about after this and let me know too. Like, how do we do? Like, what movements can we make to just make it less profitable and less, or cost more money to have the prior auth than not have the prior auths?
And that's what there has to be a consequence to the insurer that's negative in order for them, because otherwise, if it's working and they're limiting the expense of that drug, why would they change it?
Why would they change it?
Like, even if it's a pain, it's still working to their goal. And so your point is, if the consequence actually is they're having to do a ton of paperwork and get approval for these because you're able to get through them, they're going to be like, it's too much admin work, just remove it, because they obviously, the PA was, it's what the consumer needs and wants. Like they're getting through that drug. They already stepped through this. And so your theory is correct in that it's put in there to limit the use of the drug.
You just have to make that less efficient.
Yeah. Or the patient who, really is the person who has the biggest fight in this battle to say, if this population is saying, look, these prior all this that you're saying, like, that's just our world. Like, it's a useless prior authorization because that is what this disease is like. And so they can fight the insurer. But I get that that's, why should they have to do that?
Why should
I understand, but it is the nature of it. But
so it's a whole thing. So we'll have to watch it and see how it evolves.
I
do want to get to all the cool stuff you're doing with women and health inequality
that wasn't cool.
This was very prior auths are very cool. But more importantly, we're all going to do them really quickly, really fast, get them all approved.
It's going to be great.
And then it's like we're going to beat prior auth.
Big happy family.
But I'm thinking, any final thoughts we should say about this before I hear all about that?
The only thing I'll say is I think we're all in this together. And I do agree with you. Like, there has been a rationale for almost everything that's put into place, from how manufacturers price to copay program to what insurers are doing to what you have to do. So it's just that I feel like every decision kind of was made in a vacuum of where they are versus an overall healthcare system. And so I'm waiting for that savior to come in to basically either maybe it's just going to blow up and we have to build it right back again. But the bottom line is I think we all can agree, if a patient needs something and needs a drug and you as a doctor believe it, then we've got to try to make it affordable and
just try to make it work.
To it. Like, that's just like the human element is key.
Because it's a tricky one, because they're old medications that are pretty inexpensive are like dangerous to patients. Some of them, they could get liver damage, kidney damage. We were almost told by the payer, try that first.
I know.
Or we have a specific thing. It'll cost more money to make a biologic because it's a monoclonal antibody. You have to grow it very differently. It's not a small molecule you can make in a lab. And it just costs what it costs because of the process. But it's so specific. It's so effective. So it's that shift too of kind of how do we want to treat humanity? Is it just like cost-based? And it's okay if this will hurt someone's liver versus, so there's a lot of pieces.
There are, and personalized medicine
so
may be the tipping point for all of this, because in the end, if you're prescribing something directly for how your makeup is, how does insurance handle that?
That's true.
You can't have this huge formulary when everyone's being really targeted.
Treated down to, it's true. Like even for like psoriasis, we now know there's so many interleukins and different markers. So even the therapies, one works better for someone. And then we have tests now that we can see what is your type of psoriasis.
So then how do you deal with that with insurance?
Yeah. So you're right. The more and more testing we have and the more personalized we can get, I think we have a better chance too, right? So, this person needs this therapy because of this.
Yeah, it's proof.
Let's just get a proof. So
that's
it. We try to do prior auths really, really fast.
Yes.
A little bit more development of testing where we can just personalize, and it's kind of hard to. Those are arguments you can't beat.
No, you can't. I'm with you.
I think we figured it out. We just figured out healthcare. We did it.